By the way, Luka, how do I pronounce your last name?
Milojkovic. We'll practice now. Milojkovic.
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 Yes. Milojkovic.
One more time. One more time.
Milojkovic.
Yes.
Okay. Because I was totally going to say Milojkovic.
No, Miloj.
Yes.
Milojkovic.
Yep, Milojkovic.
Milojkovic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's perfect.
And welcome back to the Audacious Podcast, the show where we teach you how to think differently and live differently. I'm Talon Volmy, your host for this podcast, and we got a pretty special episode today. I'm not going to lie, because with me I have two wonderful, handsome gentlemen. I have Reade Ward.
That's right. Hey, Talon.
And I also have with me Luka Milojkovic.
Yes, sir. How's it going, everyone?
Yes,
Going good,
and it's
good.
very good to have both of you on the podcast. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to get to know both of you a little bit more, just so we can introduce you as guests to the listeners. So, Reade, if you would, tell us quickly your major in college, your hometown, and what's the most adventurous thing you've ever done.
Awesome, Talon. So I'm Reade Ward. I am an environmental science major here at Anderson University. Go Trojans. I grew up in Chester, South Carolina, which is just south of Rock Hill, South Carolina. My dad's a pastor at a small PCA church there. And the most adventuresome thing I've ever done has probably been going fly fishing by myself on an unknown river for an entire weekend. It's pretty adventurous in my books.
Wow.
It was a good time.
Yeah. What was that like?
It was 40 degrees and windy, and I definitely fell in halfway through the trip, which made things very cold. But I had a great time and learned a lot, and nature's pretty awesome. So, yeah, it was a great time.
That's sweet. Reade, it's great to have you on the podcast. Happy
Great
you're
to be here. Great to be here.
And we also have Luka with us.
Yes, sir.
Luka, if you would, tell us your major in college, your hometown, and what's your favorite fast food chain.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm a biochem major here at AU from Fort Mill, South Carolina, which is literally just 5 miles away from Carowinds on the Charlotte border. And as far as fast food was the question, right?
Yes.
Fast food restaurant, I'm going to have to go with the basic answer, but Chick-fil-A has always been a staple. And I know you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, that's such a typical basic response, but I really love it. And I remember, I'll have fond memories of going to Chick-fil-A, with my mom when I was homeschooled. And I've been going for a long time, and I just love the fried chicken. You can't go wrong with fried chicken, can you?
That's
No,
right.
you cannot. I have to laugh about that because Chick-fil-A used to be also the top of my list for fast food chains.
Yeah.
But then over the last 2 years, I found out that I was gluten-free. And that significantly dropped the choices that I have at Chick-fil-A.
So where you go now?
No chicken nuggets, no chicken sandwich, right? I can either get grilled nuggets or a grilled chicken sandwich. And when you have those two options, it's like...
You're pretty limited.
Yes, exactly. So Chick-fil-A has started to slide down the list.
It's phasing out. That's rough.
It's all right. I make do. But Luka, it is such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Of course.
Glad
Talon,
you're here.
thank you for having us today.
Of course. And also, now, there is one question that I ask every guest I have on this podcast.
All right.
So, I guess, Reade, we'll start with you. Reade, what would you say is your hottest take, also known as your most unpopular opinion?
I wouldn't say I really have any unpopular opinion. I would say that I have a opinion that people often look over, and that is the necessity for communication in our society, especially our generation. I feel like, electronics, social media can sap the apparent need out of face-to-face communication, and also parents, other influences can make us feel like we don't need communication, but there is so much to be had from sitting down, having a talk, asking people for help, that a lot of our society as a whole, especially our generation, is just missing out on because they don't have a need for it. So they don't feel like they have a need for it.
Yeah.
They really do, but they just, if you don't sow, you're not going to reap the reward. So I think a lot of America's missing out on that. Yeah.
That's big, and that's a good way to look at it, especially when it seems like the communication we have has just grown so much because of social media. It seems like we're keeping communication with all the friends that are distant from us who we don't see often. but it's empty communication. Is really what it is.
It's informal, and it doesn't get you anywhere. It's a communication that is going after fun, enjoyment, entertainment, and not going after growing relationships, growing friendships, growing in Christ. So, people miss out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good. So, Reade, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. All right. And we also have Luka, if you would, tell us what your hottest take is.
So I'm going to have to go, coming from a biochem major, this is probably really predictable, but I love chemistry. And I've heard a lot of people say, chemistry sucks, I hate organic, I hate all these other chemistry classes. And I'll be honest, I have not taken organic yet, and I will next semester. But just this semester of chemistry and last semester have been so enjoyable. They've been my favorite classes. So that could be unpopular opinion, very likely is, but just learning, memorizing nomenclature, I love doing that. I love names and naming compounds and things of that nature. So yeah, that's something unpopular or a hot take from me.
Definitely is. Reade, it seems like there's something on your mind that you want to say.
I would like to say, guys, Luka Milojkovic is renowned for his insane academic work ethic.
Here we go.
He can sit, the Croatian sensation, as I call him, can sit here all day long and talk about how, chemistry is natural to him. But us environmental science majors may tend to struggle a little bit more compared to our outstanding young academic weapon over here, Luka Milojkovic.
It's okay. We complement each other because Reade helps me learn how to tie flies and go fly fishing. So we complement each other well.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Tying flies doesn't help me pass chemistry. That's all I'm saying.
Right. No, as environmental science, do you have a lot of chemistry classes that you'll need to take?
Oh, well, I only have to do 2, but I'm on my second one right now. And, it's just work ethic. That's a lot of college.
Yeah.
It's not as much knowledge. There is, there's a lot of knowledge involved with that, especially in the, psychology, philosophy, those fields, nursing, all that. But work ethic is something that I feel like in the first year or 2 is really instilled into you. If you don't have work ethic, you're not going to make it in college. So Luka came in with that. I'm working on it. I'm building it up. I recognize the need. So I'm getting there.
For sure. Yeah, and I will say from my own experience, I have a major that is completely not based around chemistry. It's data analytics. Yeah. But I took chemistry in high school when I was doing dual enrollment. I'm from Charlotte. I took it at Central Piedmont Community College. Anybody that's from around Charlotte.
CPCC.
Yes, CPCC knows where that is. And it is so funny because I couldn't. It just didn't click with me. And I don't know whether that was the class I had, the teachers, but chemistry is so grounded in memorization. I feel like depending on the teacher you have especially, but just the course itself, you have to memorize so much more, all these symbols, all these relationships than you'd ever have to in any other class.
Yeah, it's also a lot of math. So if you're not a math person, it's going to be a lot more challenging because you're just using a lot of times formulas and plugging them in and all that. But
I don't even remember the math part about chemistry. I just remember the homework we had was online, and then you had to take all these symbols and then draw the diagrams for each symbol for each compound or component in chemistry.
Lewis structures?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me tell you, Talon, it only gets harder.
I'm sure. And I am so happy that was the only chemistry I had to take because I had the type of teacher where she was a PowerPoint lecturer. And so she would speed through the slides.
Yeah, that's not
and not really break for questions, not really break to give an example, right? And so I'm over here. I'm furiously writing down in my notes, trying to keep up, but I'm always a slide behind. And from that experience, I'm going to be honest, whenever people mention chemistry, I'm just dude, I hate chemistry.
Yeah.
I hate it. I don't have much experience with it, but because from that one class, I hate it.
It's pretty much just math.
It is.
Yeah. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone.
Yeah. But I do think that goes to show how much your first experience with a subject and with a class can affect how you view it going forward.
Yeah, in 10th grade, when I first took chem, I had a really good teacher who really kind of just developed that passion for chem and the sciences in general. So that was a huge blessing for me in high school.
Yeah, for sure. And if you have a great positive experience with chemistry or any subject beforehand, then you're going to actually love it a lot more rather than if you have a really bad negative experience. And that just goes back to how you view it in your mind, your thoughts about it, right? Whether those thoughts are positive and negative. Because people don't often see how powerful negative thoughts are. Because once we get stuck in that negative thought loop, then that starts to suck the joy out of subjects, out of relationships, and even out of life in general, if we're not keeping track of it, right? And keeping a positive mindset, it's so beneficial. It helps life, but it's so hard to do. And it takes effort, it takes commitment. We've talked about this earlier on the podcast, but it was mainly back then we talked about how do you avoid negative thoughts, right? When those come in, how do you combat them? And what I'd love to touch upon right now is, okay, so we know how to deal with negative thoughts, but how do we replace them with positive thinking, right? So how have the two of you been able to remind yourself on a day-to-day basis to have a positive mindset? And when the going gets hard, how have you been able to keep that?
So I'll go first. I'll answer the first part of your question. How do I keep a positive mindset on a daily basis? Well, I think the first thing to recognize is that we're not really promised the next day. So I think something that I like to keep in mind is to try to live life as if I were to die the next. Like try to live life to the fullest for the Lord, and give 100% in all my endeavors, whether that's school, whether that's conversations with people or sports or music. I really try to just remind myself, and it's humbling too when it comes down to that, but it's humbling to think about the fact that, the Lord could call us home any day. Jesus could come back any day. And so just being conscious and aware of that and realizing, Matthew 6:33 talks about seek the Lord and the kingdom of his righteousness first, and all these things will be given to you. And he goes on later to talk about how you shouldn't really worry about the next day because each day has enough worry of its own. So I think we can get really overwhelmed and negative thoughts can really seep into our lives when we think about, the next day ahead of us, the week ahead of us, what we have next month. And so I think it's just really beneficial to take one day at a time, not worry about the next day ahead of us, but just to give 100% of our effort to the tasks before us, hour by hour, day by day. And, life is built on those little moments that, accumulate.
Yeah. So, let's dive deeper into that. What does that look like? What does it look like to take life one day at a time?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a very organized, very detail-oriented person, so I like to plan out my schedule literally day by day. So I'll wake up in the morning and I'll be like, hey, what do I have to do today? I have a devotion, I have class at 8, class at 10, and then class at 12. And then I'll say to myself, okay, well, first I'm going to really try to invest, really be present in this devotion, not try to think about my classes at 8, 10, or 12. I'll try to invest my time with the Lord for about half an hour and then, focus on getting breakfast and enjoying that because, we take food for granted, right? It's a blessing to be able to have breakfast.
Yeah.
So I try to enjoy that and then head up to my classes and really try to engage in the classroom, really try to just keep on track of all my assignments. And then, after lunch, after classes end, I'll see what's left for the day, whether that's, some kind of, hanging out or socializing or playing disc golf. But I really try to just organize my schedule and look at what I have during the day and try to invest all my time or all my energy at least into, one thing at a time. I don't really know if that's specific enough for you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That definitely helps. Reade, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so my take's a little bit different from Luka Milojkovic's take. It's hard for me to grasp day by day. Of course, I'm a Christian. I believe that God could come back at any time, but I like seeing my future. I like seeing that doled out in my mind. Whether it ends up looking like that, who knows? But I like dwelling in my future on earth. That I can, just looking forward to life ahead, even if it's not today. But one of the big things that I've seen in my life that helps to face challenges. To face the obstacles in our life that are difficult, would be actually understanding that these are challenges. I'm meant to face them. God puts challenges in our life so that we can overcome them. And He says that He's not going to give us something that we can't handle. So I love just seeing that. Like that's a beautiful thing about Christianity and the Bible that a lot of people get wrong, is that these challenges, they're supposed to be there and they grow us. We're supposed to, if we accept them.
Yeah.
If we accept them, we can fall away from God. We can fall away from Christ if we don't accept those. If we don't embrace those challenges. If we grow angry at the world. If we grow angry at God. If we grow angry at our family. But if we do accept those, then He can use those. We can grow so close to Him through those. So it's really sweet.
That's good. Yeah, especially with challenges in our life. And I'll speak from personal experience. I have such a hard time when challenges come my way, whether that's sickness, something going on with family, right? It's so hard in those moments for me to not get stuck in just thinking negative thoughts, right? Yeah. Almost like I'm not joyful in those moments. I'm in a mindset where it's all I want is to be out of that moment, and that's what I focus on, rather than trying to train my thought life to think positively despite those challenges, despite those hardships. I stay in that mindset of I just want to be out of this, and then I can be happy again. Then I can be positive again. And that's hard. It's hard to not fall into the temptation, right, of just keeping negative thoughts in those moments and letting it defeat us and crush us.
Yeah, sure.
So what's the best way that you found to fight that, to combat that?
Temptations have been a huge source of stress and just feeling overwhelmed in my life. I've been through some things, but just the joy of the Lord, like understanding like life is not about me. Like I'm a very, very small piece of this world. Putting that into that mindset, knowing that I can't overcome, God has a plan for me, that goes a long way in just combating, whatever's thrown at you. And I, trying to avoid temptation, avoid sin, avoid situations that would lead you to be stressed or think too much towards the future, or just think about yourself. Like it's at the end of the day, it's not about you; it's about Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to go off of that. Reade brought up a great point about how you're just a small piece of the puzzle, right? And I feel like when that temptation comes, or when we have those negative thoughts, we kind of make it about us. Like, oh, this is about like what's going on in our life. But I think what's the problem there is that we get our eyes fixed on ourselves. We make it about me, rather than about Christ, and we forget to fix our eyes on Him, if that makes sense. Like with temptation, or even guilt or shame, after we slip, we mess up, and a lot of people obviously deal with guilt or shame. I personally do, pretty constantly, because we're sinners and we mess up on a daily basis. But I think when we have that guilt or shame or that anxiety, it's just really, like, for me, what's helped is just thinking about like, hey, I'm thinking about myself too much here, like about what I've done, about what I did, about what I saw or what I heard or what I listened to, rather than what Christ did for me. Yeah. And where sin abounds, grace abounds even more, right? So it's just like I need to get my eyes off of myself and what I did or what I'm thinking about myself, like what situation I'm in, and put myself, fixing my eyes on Christ, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think really you're just speaking about, rather than taking it inward perspective, thinking about how it affects us, like really trying our best to think outwardly, taking an outward perspective, right? Yeah. Is that where you're getting at?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just running from selfishness. And like I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, when will I ever on this world get to hear about the millions of Christians in China, communist China, the Christians in North Korea, the Christians in Somalia, Algeria, those that are being actively persecuted, that are struggling on earth, and what would I feel like in their situation? Like, if I was just put into that situation right now, I would feel like, oh, the world is coming to the end because I am not doing well, because I'm physically being hurt, I'm hurting, I'm mentally being hurt, I'm hurting, my family's being hurt, my country's being hurt. And that puts it into perspective. It's not about me. Just because we are we're just, our economy's really good, and the United States, we have free belief. We can believe what we want to. That's the grounds for us to believe that these are rights that everyone has, and that we should have these. That is something that everyone should have. But we don't have that right at all.
Yeah.
We deserve to be punished. We deserve to be in a war-torn country. And I feel like that's a lot of people in those countries have something that we don't, and that's that sense of selflessness. It's not about them. For the believer in Somalia, for the believer in Chad right now, it's not about them. It's about Christ, and it's about seeing Him one day.
Yeah. You said something there that kind of hit me deep. You said we deserve to be in one of those war-torn countries. We deserve to be persecuted.
Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, that's hard to accept, but it is true because we are fallen. Because we have just this sinful nature. What we deserve is to be punished, right?
Yeah.
And what deserve,
we don't even deserve that.
Yeah. We deserve eternal condemnation, of course.
Yeah.
Jesus came to save us, and through His grace and His sacrifice on the cross is why we get to live in redemption and salvation.
Mm-hmm.
But like you were saying, when we live in a country like America where we have so many blessings, it's easy to take that for granted, and I think that's the normal way of life.
Yeah.
So
that's just, earthly viability is out the roof here.
Worldliness,
worldliness is positively looked on. It's a culture where we are ingrained into thinking we have these rights, and we definitely, like what you said, we don't. We shouldn't have them. It just draws towards selfishness and away from Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. We were talking about having a global perspective just on the last episode of this podcast. Mm. And I think what it boils down to is when you look at the situation of other countries and people living in other countries, they have this level that they're normal to, but our level in America of just life standards, economy, blessings is so much higher. Yeah. But we see that as the normal. So as soon as that takes a little dip, right, it's still way above the situations of Christians and people living in other countries. But all of a sudden, because we've noticed it's taken a dip, all of a sudden we think things are just out of control.
Oh my gosh.
Life is horrible.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. In that, go ahead.
Yeah. So you mentioned distractions, Talon, and I think the first thing that just came to my mind is, you're so right. In America, we're so privileged to have so many amenities, and I think that how one way we've turned away from Christ and just made it about us is because of all those amenities, those distractions. They become little distractions, and sometimes those little distractions, they build up. Oh, yeah. And it becomes even worse than if we were persecuted for our faith, because we become complacent.
Yeah.
When we have so much religious freedom, when we have just so many little things, they become those distractions, and that's probably what the devil wants, not to distract us with something big, but those little distractions, and they add up. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's good. And distractions are the biggest way that the enemy keeps us from doing the work of God, right? I heard this amazing quote. It's from a sermon. But it said, the enemy doesn't try immediately to get us to be angry, right? What he tries to do is to get us to put our hope in something that isn't Jesus. And then when that doesn't live up to our hope because it's broken and it's not Jesus, that's when we get bitter. That's when we get angry. And it's true, right? This country, this whole world we're in is designed to distract us, to get us to put our hope in something that isn't true, isn't right. It may seem true. It may seem right. But then the bait and switch is pulled, and it's not right. It's broken. Yeah. And we have so much negativity all around us all the time. I mean, just go on social media, Twitter. You never want to see that, just because it is just full of people shouting their negative opinions, shouting what's going on in the world, right? And you're just surrounded by this negativity online, even in real life, just people that can be stuck in negativity. And that can really impact us if we let ourselves get distracted by that negativity. So how do we maintain positive thoughts despite all that chaos and disruption around us?
That's a good question. I would say, so much in life just goes back to that personal communication. Can you imagine everyone in America right now just getting together like in little groups and just yelling it out, just getting it out there, like how much we as a country would learn, like how many different thoughts would come out of that. And I think communication, as as so many Americans see it, like through social media, through Twitter, Instagram, texting, whatever. It's such a two-edged sword because, we're able to communicate with people who we would otherwise have no contact with. All right, but it's a very limited communication. All right, it's not a sit down and let's talk for an hour and a half about this really complex issue that we could, spend weeks talking about. It's back and forth with the biggest arguments, maybe throwing in a little bit of hate here and there, and that just tears you down. Like you don't get the fundamentals of someone's, desires and thoughts out of that. You a lot of times you just get left with the negative, which is exactly what we don't need. Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say a lot of it is just kind of getting rid of or taking a break from the stuff that's full of negativity, like social media or the news. The news is a big one. I'm not saying you shouldn't keep up with current events. No, what I'm saying is, if the first thing you do when you wake up is look at the news or check your social media account before you read the Word of God or pray, there's something wrong with that. We've become such a digital age where all we do now is look at social media. All we do now is look at the news, or we listen to degrading music. Yeah. Whether it be, I don't know what. It's all genres, not just rap, right? Yeah. It can be all genres. So just listening to degrading music and just news, kind of ridding ourselves of that in a way, in a sense, and taking a break, taking a step outside of that is just a way to kind of counteract the negativity, because that's where it comes. What we look at, right? What we listen to, that's where the negativity starts to, I guess, take root.
For sure. And when we're filling our lives with, like you were saying, the news, this music that just has all these degrading messages, social media, we're allowing other sources to tell us what to think and how we should feel, rather than deciding how we should feel and what we should think for ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah, and the ultimate source of what we should think is from the Word of God, right? Because it's not from the news, like you said. News and society shouldn't tell us how to think, and I think personally it should be the Word of God that guides us and instructs us on a daily basis.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this a few weeks ago. I don't know where it came from, but I was thinking, what if someone bought out Instagram, bought out Twitter, bought out Yik Yak, bought out everything? What if all social media was just gone? What would a college campus, what would my mind look like? How would that be different? And I feel like I would have so many less distractions. Yeah. They wouldn't be there. I wouldn't have the 15 different things that I've seen about 15 different people that I'm around on social media. I wouldn't see that. What I would know, what I would see is what matters to me. Yeah. When you fill your head with stuff that doesn't matter to you, you're just pulling away from who you are and who God wants you to be. You're distracting yourself with the world. You don't need that. No one needs that.
Yeah, and it's amazing when we fill our lives with seeing what other people are doing on Instagram, on social media. It's like we're comparing our lives to the snippet that they're posting about themselves. And comparison is the thief of joy. So it's easy when we're scrolling through the feeds, continually keeping up to date with our friends and the good stuff that's happening in their life. It's easy for those thoughts of comparison to come in, and then it sucks the joy out of our life, because we're like, oh, I'm not in Miami. I'm not in Hawaii right now. I'm not having a party with my friends. I'm stuck and life is awful, right? But we're only seeing the glimpses that they're posting about, and then when we compare ourselves to those glimpses, we feel like everybody else has a perfect life and we don't.
Well, sure, yeah, and a big part of that is social status. When you see all these Instagram things, when you're looking at, followers to following ratios on everyone's account and all that stuff, that, you're setting up fake social statuses for yourself that are not realistic at all. And that goes both ways for the social highlights and the social depressions. That's not real. That's Instagram. That's Facebook. What really matters is your real life interactions, and those are fleeting. Those are the real ones, and we're missing out on them.
Yeah.
I think a big thing in regards to comparison, Talon, is especially now in college, is with like relationships when people post and, now it's spring season, ring by spring, what they say.
Oh, yeah.
So it's,
yeah.
it's very easy for you to start comparing yourselves to other people and their relationship, and especially if you're single, right? You can get bogged down and like, I'm lonely, like I need like someone. But the truth is, you already have so many people who care for you. And that season of singleness is so precious because you have so many friendships with guys, friendships with girls. There's preciousness to that. There's biblical preciousness to that. And I just think that it's very easy to compare yourself in regards to relationships and singleness. But I think there's that's a whole nother topic to discuss, but that's just one area that we can start to think negatively, right?
Yeah,
That's right.
So
preach it, Luka.
So just like when you start comparing yourself like from that source, like social media, you already start to realize like hey, I may not be dating someone, I may not be in a relationship like those other people, but I have the preciousness of those really strong bonds with other girls, with other guys, and that's something I've recently just been thinking about, is how, in this season of college now, like there's a beauty to having all those friendships, and waiting for a relationship.
Yeah. That's hard because
It's very hard.
we don't want to accept the beauty of being not in a relationship, right? Especially when the world tells us all the time, oh, if you're not dating someone, you're not in a relationship, then there must be something wrong.
Block out the world. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's right.
That's hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
That's hard.
Oh,
to
it
do.
is hard. Well, the most fruit that you can get in life is out of some of the hardest situations. We look at depressions, recessions, war, all these big things that people, countries, economies are growing through. You come out the other side a different person, a different country, and that's like, I know it's on a small scale, but that's like relationships in college. You have all these great friends, but you're like, oh, well, I have this great friend group, but I don't have the one. Well, guess what? You're growing through that friend group. You're finding yourself. You're finding who you want to be around. You're finding your niche. And if you miss out of that, if you just jump in straight to dating, I feel like a lot of times you can miss out on growing. You can miss out on growing as a community because you're a small part of a community. Here we're what, 1 of 4,000 at Anderson, and this is a small college. We're a small part of a community. You just miss out on that if you get singled in on one person. If you get singled in on yourself, you're really missing out. So yeah.
Wow. That's good. And especially when we're thinking about this, right? It's easy to compare. It's easy to fall in and let the voices around us control how we think, but it's hard to block it out, right? It's hard to block it out and to remind ourselves to care about what God says about us first, to care about what the Word tells us to think about. I mean, I think it's Philippians 4:8, right? And I'm going to pull this up.
Dwell on whatever's pure.
Yes,
just and holy,
I'm going to pull
right?
this up
Darn
so I
straight.
don't misquote it.
Yeah.
So I don't get any flack for that. But no, it's finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And that's an active term, think about such things, because we have to actively choose to think about it. I think a lot of people, I was just having a conversation about this with one of my friends. He was telling me that, sometimes he just has thoughts that he says, I can't control what I'm thinking, so sometimes these will just come up. And I was sitting there, I was thinking, but you can. We can exert our will over our thoughts and make our mind think about what is true, what is right, what is pure, what is praiseworthy. And that takes effort, right? But when we have, I'm going to just take a psychological aspect from this. When we have these neural pathways that connect, they recognize patterns in our thought life. Like when we go through challenges, all of a sudden we get depressed. Our brain recognizes that, and then paths between neurons start to form so that it's reinforced even more the more that we embrace it. And then we have to break out of that. We have to say, no, I'm not going to do this. That's like the self-reflection. And we have to actively exert our will every time that comes up and choose to think about other things, think about godly things, good things, and to have a positive thought life. I was wondering if either of you have ever experienced anything like this, and if so, what's worked for you?
Experience negative thoughts or
Yeah, just
thoughts in general.
Being able to refocus your mind onto something positive, like exerting your will over your mind.
Okay. Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is playing soccer in my early childhood. I played for a while. And, I played for about 6 years through middle school, through early high school, and then I stopped for like 2 years because I wanted to commit running cross country and track and field in high school, and I really enjoyed that. But when I did decide to go back into soccer, I was kind of like behind, like skill level wise, because they had extra 2 years on me, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of discouraging, like negative thoughts in the way that like I wasn't on the same skill level, and like going to like play D2 or even D1 for that matter in like college, which, I'm an athlete. I love being outdoors. I love playing sports. That realization kind of hit me hard. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this, play sports and at least like collegiate sports. And so that kind of, I think negative thoughts definitely hit me. And I just kind of had a low self-worth. But I think working through that, what helped me was realizing that we are all gifted with unique abilities, and something that God has blessed me with is not necessarily always like being able to play soccer in college, but having an intellect and a work ethic. And I think I've been blessed by that. So I'm super thankful for that. And just we all have unique abilities, unique gifts that God has given us, right? And so thinking about those things and how we can apply ourselves to those things and how we can, show Christ's love through that, right? Through our gifts. I think that helped me tremendously. It kind of helped me refocus and reorient and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to play soccer at at Anderson or football for that matter, because I took 2 years off of soccer and I'll never be able to catch up with everyone now. But I think realizing, I have other gifts that I can use for the kingdom and for the glory of God. And even more so, like I have not more time now that I'm not, committed as an athlete. I have more time to invest in friendships.
Yeah.
I have more time to get one-on-ones in the cafeteria or off campus. I have more time to be in a small group. I have more time to regularly attend church, just little stuff like that. And so counting your blessings rather than dwelling on the negatives. So that's one thing for me that's helped.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I never went the soccer route. I always just left that to the Croatian sensation over here. But yeah, definitely have struggled with negative thoughts in the past. In the past 2-3 months, that was a big point of distress for me. Just feeling uncomfortable with it and trying to escape. Just patterns of lust, of greed. Just things that sinners face, and a big part of that that I found was actually looking at Christ. And I don't just mean just going to church, going to Bible study. I mean actively searching for Christ, in the messages. Yeah. And it's incredible the difference between just going to church, just hearing sermons, and looking, just yearning for stuff that strives to you. God will use that, and God showed me so much in a 2-3 week span. God revealed to me so much about Himself and about myself just through the sermons that I've been hearing for the past 5-10 years. Just the same old stuff, and it just shines like a light. It's like, man, that just hit.
Yeah.
You find that if you look to Christ. Yeah.
For sure, dude. I know, because hearing you say this just makes me think about what I went through, and it's almost exactly what you were saying. Before I transferred into Anderson, for those of you who don't know, I'm a transfer. I'm a junior, just so you know. I have a lot of people asking me if I'm a freshman, so there you go. But no, right before I transferred in, faith was very much something that I wasn't yearning for, but I was still going through the motions in, right? I was going to church because that's what Christians do, not because I was yearning for God and yearning for the messages that I could gain from His Word, but just because, it's just what I do. And then I want to say, not the semester before I transferred in, but the winter before, around October, November, December, is really when I started changing. For some reason, something in my heart and my mind just started changing. I think it was in the middle of the COVID pandemic. I was still at UNC Charlotte. I just spent a year completely doing online classes. So I had like you were saying, almost no communication.
In person.
Yeah.
In person,
In-person communication.
It was all on Zoom.
That's
and
killer.
some of my Zoom classes were even like saying, yeah, you don't have to attend. You can just do all the work yourself. So my schedule was literally wake up at like 11 a.m., 12 p.m., go to bed 3 a.m., right? Almost nothing, no like relationships. And in that moment, it's like when I realized how drastic things were. And that's when my heart started changing. I started actually yearning for God. In the mornings, I started devotion. And I never had in the past. I'd never actively myself gone and spent personal time with God. I just kept praying a simple prayer every single morning. God, show me hidden sin in my life. I want to live more for you. Just show it to me so I can have a better relationship with you. And just like you, it took 2 months of praying that single prayer every single morning. But just like you, right after that, I came down with COVID, got sick with it. But God used that just to reveal everything in my life that didn't align with him, right? Lust, pornography, right? And then also just secular music, themes of the movies and TV shows I was watching that didn't align with his scripture.
Yeah.
And it just hit me like a wave. It was like it was searing on my mind, right? Just the conviction and how I had been living with such a worldly frame of view.
Yeah.
And he used that. He really used that to convict me, to turn me fully back to him. And I'm thankful because he broke me free of that by showing me the severity of it. And I've been walking clean like ever since that time.
Wow.
Fantastic.
It is. It's amazing. But I would have never realized that. I would never have come to that unless I had actually started yearning for Christ.
Yeah. That's very
yearning
true.
for a better life.
Yeah. And that's one of the beautiful things about coming to Anderson that I found is that even those small things, like the high school friends, the music that didn't honor Christ, just the joking behavior, it's a fresh start. And especially at Anderson, I feel like a lot of that is discouraged and you really just don't have to be around it if you don't want to be. Yeah. And that when you eliminate the small things, like you said, it reveals the bigger things. And holy cow, does it reveal the bigger things. Because if you don't, we can only have so much in our heads. Like as humans, we can only have so many habits. We can only have so much going through our minds. And when you push some of that out, it's like you're unblocking a dam. It's like everything comes rushing out. And it's just amazing. It really is. So, yeah. And another thing. Back to communication.
Yeah.
Everything goes back to communication.
It all goes back to communication because that's how you free barriers in your head. One of the giant barriers for Christian guys, is lust. All right? If you do not struggle with lust, you're not a dude. All right? You're just not a dude.
Yeah.
That is like having discussions, especially in college, about those lustful desires, those thoughts. Will go so far for you. They will just go so far for you. You grow through them, being around Christians, having that fellowship. It's a special kind of revealing salt in the wound fellowship that you just don't find anywhere else. Yeah. Like I haven't found it yet, so it's incredible.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and on the topic of lust, I mean, let's be honest. We all struggle to some degree with lust. And especially from a guy perspective, it's so easy to get caught up in those negative thoughts, right? And I think, I look back to, what Paul says, a thorn in the flesh was given to me. And I think to a certain extent, like that's like our thorn in the flesh, our unique thorn in the flesh that we deal with on a weekly, daily basis. But I try to see, in regards to how do we counteract those negative thoughts, I try to view it from the perspective of, Lord, you've put me in this trial for a reason. Like, I know you're going to deliver me, but before you deliver me, how will you develop me? Like, Lord, develop me through this and then deliver me. Don't just deliver me and I don't learn anything and then I go into a relapse. Yeah. Lord, develop me and then, Lord, please, bring me out of this Egypt that I'm in. But first, develop me, right? Because as Reade was saying, trials is a time for us to grow closer to God, and that should be our desire, even when life kind of sucks sometimes, or when we get caught up in temptation, when we get caught up in lust. Yeah. Like, Lord, help me see you through this. Like, what can I learn in this situation? So,
asking the Lord, what can I learn from this? What do you want me to learn from this? Because He uses everything for our good. Right. So He works all things out for good. And if we don't learn anything through the trials, that we face, we're just going to continue to walk in the way that the Lord doesn't want us to.
Yeah.
We're not going to grow enough to the place where he wants us to be so he can use us for his kingdom, right? And that's so big. And I've been realizing that too, Luka, which is why I was nodding my head as you were saying that. Just in the trials, Lord, what do you want me to learn from this? Let me not be ignorant in this. Let me not be just rebuking you in this. Let me not be so hard-hearted that I refuse to learn anything and just want to get through it. But Lord, teach me. Teach me what you want me to know.
And what is a giant thing that so many young Christians do not realize, and like how does that affect them not getting over it? What is it that they don't realize? That it's sin, that they're in sin patterns. I mean, how can you fight sin if you don't realize you're in sin? If you don't want to realize that you're in sin, you can't. And that's you have to take something in your life has to change for you to be able to realize that. You have to have some sort of conversation. You have to listen to some sort of sermon. You have to have some sort of talk with your friend to be able to even realize that. Like, that's so huge, and so many people miss out on it.
Yeah, having accountability, kind of springboarding off of Reade, having accountability is so crucial. And here at Anderson University, there's like no better place to find that accountability, right? You have like-minded believers. I'm not going to say everyone AU's as a believer, but there's a lot of
percentage.
But there's a lot of places to find that at campus ministry, at a local church. Yeah. Through upperclassmen pouring. I mean, I've had the privilege of having upperclassmen pour into me, having a campus ministry like RUF. I'm sure BCM has been a blessing to you, Talon.
Oh yeah.
But just having accountability. And being able to be honest, not isolating yourself, but surrounding yourself in a community like Reade mentioned. But having those friendships where you can have those deep and honest conversations and being, not isolating yourself, not keeping those thoughts to yourself, because if you keep it to yourself, it'll build up, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have kind of an outlet to get those thoughts, and be honest. What we're like. I messed up today, or this is how I'm feeling today. Like, being honest in those conversations provides an outlet to kind of dispel those negative thoughts, if it makes sense.
Yeah. And God designed us for community,
right?
Which is why isolation is so damaging.
And that's where communication comes in, right? Because you have to be able to, and this is serious, because I've known people who have felt isolated, and that negativity can really build up. So it's so important that you share, that you communicate.
No, I was just laughing because Reade is so right. Communication is essential to everything.
Yeah,
but we downplay it. Yeah. We downplay it as if it's not.
Well, of course we downplay it. We're dudes. We hate communicating. We hate it. We hate it. Like, it's so hard to get past that barrier. Like, do I want to be in RUF small groups? No. I want to run from that. I want to run from Christ. I want to run from, actual friendships. That's like, I'm a sinner. I'm a dude. I hate that. But God can draw you into that. You can go against the grain of who you think you are, and you can turn into something beautiful. And that's hard.
Yeah.
That is so hard.
It is. Yeah. It takes discipline, it takes willpower, and it takes the yearning.
That's right.
Yeah, it does.
Also helps if you're not a dude for communication. So involvement's not easy for us. Yeah.
Yep. It's definitely not our
It's not our forte.
No, not at all.
I'll just sit in my room and play video games, guys. Nah.
That's true. But that shows how important it is for us to really grow in it and then try to embrace it.
Yeah.
We can't keep saying, because I'm a dude, I'm bad at communication. That's who I'm always going to be.
Yeah.
No, right?
You got to step out of your comfort zone sometimes.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. It is a
challenge, but it's not something we cannot overcome.
Exactly. It's just in the same line of, I'm a sinner, so I guess I'm always going to be a sinner. That's how I'm always going to be. No. Jesus came so that he would redeem us, sanctify us, and we change through his help in our life. A life without Jesus is chaotic. It's unruly.
Yeah.
There's really no change without him. But when we go to him, Jesus accepts us as who we are, but he never wants to leave us in the situation that we are in right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, you want to talk about getting out of your comfort zone, all right? Let me tell you, Jesus Christ got out of his comfort zone, all right, on earth. He literally came down to earth from a perfect heaven, came down to earth to be with us. Like, if he can do that, all right, I know we're sinners, but we can do a lot more than we think we can as far as involvement goes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially since he lives in us. I mean, if he did that.
That helps too.
And he is helping us too. It really does. Yeah. And just calling out to him.
Some of that Holy Spirit. That's right.
Giving him everything. I mean, I realize it's to the degree and specificness to which we pray that we see his hand move. So, if we're struggling with communication, just asking, flat up asking. It's hard because, pride gets in the way. We're not humble. We like to think that we have everything in control. No, we don't. Control is just an illusion because God's the one in control.
That's right.
But it's just taking up to him saying, Lord, I am a bad communicator and I want to be able to communicate better. Help me in this.
That's right. That's right.
So that's good. That's good. Well, I think that is a perfect place to wrap up. We kind of went full circle from your hot take, Reade, which was communication, to this. But before we do end the episode, I do want to ask each of you, what's one piece of advice that you'd like to give the listeners for the week ahead?
Ooh.
Advice or encouragement?
Oh, that's good. I would say just plan ahead in life. Have goals for your life. That's something that I've been very beneficial. And they can be staticky. There can be room for error. But so many people in this day and age do not have a plan for their life. And I'm not just saying job. I'm saying, do you want to have a family? All right. Do you want to get married? Do you want to stay in the U.S.? Things like that you can map out. Not saying they're going to come true, but that you can map out. You can have plans for the future, and you can work towards those goals. Because if you just say, I don't know where I'm going to be in 15 years. I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years. I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. All right? Well, nothing that you can do today will influence anything that comes in the future if you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. You can fail out of school. You can quit going to church. You can quit having a relationship with Christ. You can dump your relationship with your family if you don't have plans for the future. All right. But if you do have plans for the future, that provides stability. That provides mental stability. It provides support. It provides goals. That's just so big. Like that does so much for you. So have plans for the future.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic point, Reade. Something that I would say in regards to prayer and coming before God and letting your requests be made known to him and to others. So many times we come with requests to God, we hardly ever have time to just thank God for what he's done already for us, right? The fact that we're saved, that we're called and chosen by God, right? That God's grace, his mercies are new every morning.
Yeah.
So to thank God for his mercy, really, on a daily basis. I'm not saying don't ever, have a prayer request. Those prayer requests are important. It's important to communicate that and to share that with others, but also remember, God has already done so much for us.
That's
we
right.
we don't deserve anything. So really, be thanking God, not just asking God for help, but be thanking God for the things, even if it's the little things in life on a daily basis. Be thanking him for those friendships. Be thanking him for what he did today, for the conversation you had with so-and-so, and just not only have those requests when you pray, but also take the time to thank God for what he's doing and what he's going to do and what he's already done.
Yeah.
So,
That's right, Luka.
That's good. Hey, well, Reade, Luka, thank you boys so much for being on this podcast. This has been great.
It's been fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And as always, I'm your host, Town Bulmy. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.